Good.
Thank you. All right. All right. You have a full house already.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Please mute yourselves until your call. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'm guessing you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the March 13, 2025 meeting of CPAC, Chancellor's Parent Advisory Council. Hoping everyone is safe and sound and healthy. What a wonderful month of Women International History Month, the whole month, but I celebrate every day as everyone should. Why we celebrate this month? I celebrate every single month strong women like us that we empower the world. We break the barriers of education from parent to parent, one child at a time. We inspire other women to continue their work with us. That's who we are, women everywhere. We celebrate you today and every single day. Your dedication to our New York City public schools, continue supporting parents, continue advocating and raising your voice for our children, and we thank you. And with that, we are going to start the meeting at 9:33 a.m. Thank you everyone for joining today. And we are going to do the CPAC procedures and standing rules. And for that, we have, hopefully, Miss Erica. Are you in the line?
Hi, good morning. Sorry. And we're going to go over our norms for today. And first of all, our dues. Make sure you raise your hand and wait to be recognized before speaking. Be an active listener. Present and engage. Be respectful, kind, and professional. And remember, we have one mic. Don't unmute yourself unless you've been called on to speak and recognized. No side conversations in the chat. No disrespect. No follow-up on questions once your question is answered. And for all our interactions, you want to make sure that we will give you a warning on the first interaction. You'll be muted for the rest of the meeting if it continues. And lastly, you'll be removed from the current meeting, which we definitely anticipate will not happen. We have amazing parents and our school community is here, and we're so excited to have you here all this morning. And welcome again.
Thank you so much. Wonderful, Erica. Okay, and today we are having roll call by Randy. Are you available?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Okay, District 1,
Good morning, here.
District 2,
Good morning, here.
District 3, District 3, District 4, District 5, District 6,
Good morning, President.
good morning, District 7, District 8,
Good morning, District 8.
good morning, Erica, District 9, District 10,
Oh,
District
sorry. District 9 is here. District 9 is here.
Okay, good morning,
Good morning.
11, District 12,
Good morning, District 12.
Good morning. District 13. District 14.
Hi, good morning here.
Good morning. District 15.
Hi, District 15 present.
District 16.
Good morning, District 16 present.
Good morning. District 17. District 18.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. District 19. District 20.
Here.
Good morning, Josephine. District 21.
Morning, present.
I'm sorry, 17 is here. Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I
No problem.
apologize.
No problem, Veronica. Good morning. District 22.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. District 23. District 24.
Present.
Good morning.
Good
District
morning.
25.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. District 26.
Here, good morning.
Good morning. District 27. District 28.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. District 29.
Good morning, Priscilla here.
Morning. District 30. I saw Becca.
District 30 here. I can't hear anything. Sorry, on the train.
Oh, it's okay. I saw you. District 31.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. District 32. District 75. Brooklyn High School, I'm here. Bronx High School. Manhattan High School.
Rosa Diaz here. Good morning.
Morning. Queens High School.
Internet here. Good morning.
Good morning. And Staten Island High School. Okay. The attendance form is dropped in the chat, so please make sure you fill it out. And I give the floor back over to our chair, Rosa Diaz.
Thank you so much, Randy. Okay, we do have quorum. We have like literally everyone here. Thank you so much. Talk about dedicated parents. Woo. Okay, the agenda was distributed ahead of time. There will be a tiny amendment just because it is very urgent, and also because it got stuck in my email somewhere, and we just needed to add this one item to the agenda regarding the budget. They will be presenting around 11:50-ish. With that amendment, this is the agenda. And does anyone have any opposition to adding the budget to the agenda? Otherwise, we can continue. Okay. Thank you so much. So at 9 a.m., obviously, we already did the roll call. We're going to do business and updates. We're going to have a 9:40 New York State of Office for New Americans. Cynthia Stewart, she is on the meeting. We already saw her. At 10 a.m., we're going to have a presentation by the Office of Transportation, Omni Cars. We have a lot of questions when it comes to that. And of course, around 10:20 a.m., we're going to have my amazing District 4 Family Leadership Coordinator, Nancy Pereira. I am so excited. Even though I go to all the workshops, I'm still excited to keep on learning. I love, love, love all her workshops and training. Thank you so much, Nancy. Okay, let me go. Around 10:50, we're going to have United Federations of Teachers President Michael Mulgrove with regards to the proposed legislation for the UFT represented paraprofessionals. Around 11:05 a.m., we're going to have the CCEC elections presentation and the NISCA overview. If anyone has any questions, please write it down in that chat or raise your hand after the presentation. Please do not interrupt the presenter while they're speaking. Please put your questions after they present. And around 11:35-ish, family and community engagement, our amazing Jessie Mojica. And we are going to table the January and February 2025 minutes. We do not have them. and hopefully we'll have enough time for district updates. I know that everyone has so many updates. We want to hear from everyone. And with that, we'll have an adjournment around 12:10. Okay, we are going to go to our first presentation. Okay, sorry about that. My computer froze. So our first presentation is New York State Office for New Americans. Cynthia, take it away. You did. Oh my gosh, ahead of time. I love it.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. Happy to be here. I'll be presenting for about 20 minutes, sharing an introduction to the New York State Office for New Americans and its Ramirez June initiative, which increases access to disability services for new Americans. So I'll share with you all today about what services we have at the Office for New Americans, a little bit about who New Americans are, and about our Ramirez June initiative. And thank you to Jacqueline Tomlin from OPWDD who connected me with your group. Yeah, my name is Cynthia Stewart. I'm the Senior Program Manager for the Ramirez June Initiative at the New York State Office for New Americans. I'm at the Albany location, but our office covers all of New York State. And we also have a New York City office as well. So who are New Americans? You may not be familiar with that term. You can use that term the same as the term immigrants. New Americans refers to all people who were born outside of the U.S. and then moved to the U.S. to live here, regardless of their immigration status. So for New Americans, we think of people who are all different types of immigrants, people who have a green card, people who weren't born a citizen, but then they went on and became a citizen. Also people who are undocumented or came here as refugees or they're seeking asylum. So all people who are new to the U.S. And, we say new Americans, they don't have to literally be new to the U.S. New Americans can be people who have recently moved to the United States or people who've lived here for decades. And, like everyone, some new Americans are people with disabilities and developmental disabilities. And if you're not familiar with this stat, 1 in 4 New Yorkers are new Americans. And there's about 3.3 million new Americans in New York City and 4.5 million throughout all of New York State. 1 in 4 New Yorkers. So about our office, we were founded in 2012 and we're the nation's first statutorily created immigrant services office. So basically we're created by law and we assist all new Americans, so regardless of their immigration status, and also assisting, a new American family, like maybe the parents are immigrants, but the children were born here, so the children are U.S. citizens. We think of the new American family as well, and we assist new Americans with accessing and navigating a variety of our services, which I'll share a little more about, through our statewide network of community-based providers. So our services are all free, and they're provided at local community-based organizations, including in New York City. So sharing a little bit about our different services, we have services to help people become a citizen. So if you're not born a citizen and you're going through that process, it's a very long, complicated process, and you have to take a citizenship test, and they're going to quiz you on these questions on American history. So some of our grantees and programs will help people prepare for that test so they know that American history can pass that. We also have support workforce development. We have job coaches to help people with employment services in the U.S. So for instance, if you're from another country, maybe you have a lot of skills, or you've heard the story of someone who's like a nurse, a doctor, lawyer, or just has some skills from their country, and then in the U.S., they're driving a taxi or they're doing babysitting because they don't have, their skills aren't transferring here, they don't have the certification. So it's those types of services to help people gain employment in the U.S. And just for example, there's just some things like in other countries and resumes, you might put on your resume for work that you're married, or you might put your religion or a picture. And in the United States, we don't have that information on our resumes. So little differences like that are good to learn if you're not familiar. We also have mental health support. Our Golden Door program has group therapy for immigrants in different languages, and it's run by a licensed mental health professional, so a therapist, to offer that group therapy, which, you know, is always important, but important now more than ever. Especially important now is immigration legal services. So we have free legal support for immigrants through immigration attorneys that will give someone a consultation or assist them with their case. So I mentioned people are undocumented before. Some people are undocumented, and they might actually have a pathway for an immigration status so that they will no longer be undocumented, that they can access a status or different pathways. It's really good to get a consultation with an immigration attorney to see what your options are. And our immigration attorneys also help with people who are facing detention or deportation. So all that support is really essential right now. Our services also include English language learning. So learning English as a new language in a classroom, in person. Some of our services are also provided virtually. All the information is on our website. I can give you a quick preview of our website during this. And then developmental disability services through the Ramirez June Initiative, which I'll share more about. So through the Ramirez June Initiative, it's at the state level increasing access to disability services for new Americans. And we have a pilot case management program in Brooklyn that helps new Americans navigate disability systems. I'm going to share a little bit more about that program as I go on. A little more about our legal services. Statewide network of experienced immigration attorneys. It's free immigration legal support, you know, regardless of someone's immigration status. They also host Know Your Rights and law-related workshops, and they can also do consultation days where they see multiple people to help them with their immigration type questions. And a good way to connect is that we have our New Americans hotline, 1-800-566-7636. The hotline is the best way to call to get connected to local ONA programs. And we'll be sharing these slides afterwards too. Another program for English language learning. This is a great takeaway, and I can share a handout for this. We have Cell Ed, which is free English language learning and training, also skills building. You can work on skills like employment readiness skills, and, you know, learning English on your phone. And it doesn't have to be a smartphone. It could be whatever you call it, basic phone, where people can learn as they go. And it's a free program. So we'd love to raise awareness about this for more people to take advantage of Cell Ed. And again, here's our hotline number. It runs 9 to 8 p.m. It's confidential, free, and anonymous. And you can also call and get basic questions answered about immigration. So sometimes when there's updates, policy changes for immigration information, we have phone bank days where you can call the hotline and get that information. And then assistance is available in 200 plus languages. So, you know, if someone speaks a different language, they call the hotline and they get that telephonic interpretation to help with the call. A little bit about the Ramirez June Initiative. Increase access to disability services for new Americans, so immigrants, through outreach, training, and partnership. And the initiative is the first of its kind in our country, and it launched as a grant from the New York State Council on Developmental Disabilities, the CDD. We started in 2019, that's when I started my role, and continued to build capacity to support new Americans with disabilities. And we started this initiative because we know that immigrants with disabilities face additional challenges getting the supports and services that they need. So what does the ONA Ramirez June Initiative do? We host workshops, we create and share resources that are in different languages, and we partner with other state agencies, with parent groups, with new American communities. And, you know, through partnership, like no one person can do this work alone. So partnering and sharing about different resources and services is really helpful to help this community. We also provide technical assistance, so some support, like when there's complicated cases, we can offer that support and make referrals and connections. We also launched the ONA Bilingual Coordinator Program in Brooklyn, New York, which offers case management to the New American community, and that is led by the Chinese American Planning Council in the Sunset Park area. We also build capacity through sharing strategies and recommendations to increase access to disability services for New Americans. And in the initiative, we aim to help New Americans of all ages with all different types of disabilities. So it's called the Ramirez June Initiative because it's named after two families, the Ramirez family and the family of June Lum. So both of these families are immigrant families who came to New York State, and they faced barriers, but they overcame these challenges to access the disability services that they need. So on the left is the Ramirez family. They live in the Albany area, and they came to the United States from Oaxaca, Mexico. They speak Spanish and English, and Umberto, who's in the picture, has cerebral palsy. And our director at ONA actually, her sons went to school with Umberto and his sister Monica and their other siblings. And our director, Laura, saw how their family just faced some challenges in the school getting the supports that they need. So she was really inspired by his family to collaborate and create this initiative so that there's a focus on how can New Americans with developmental disabilities and other disabilities get the services that they need. Then I'll share a little bit about June's story. June is from Malaysia, and she came to the US, and her son was born in New York, and he's on the autism spectrum. And when he was a baby, she was worried that he might have a disability or developmental delay. But June shared how when she was with her son's pediatrician that she wasn't really given the information that she needed. She was kind of told like, oh, wait and see, wait and see. She wasn't referred to a program like the early intervention program or, other support to get those early intervention type therapies and treatments early, because the earlier you get that support, the more, effective that it can treat different disability symptoms and improve outcomes. So because of June's struggle with that early identification and early support, we do have some resources on the early identification of disabilities in young children. And June faced other barriers as well, connecting her son with some disability services. It took her about 6 years to be able to access services, and she was constantly trying and advocating, and she was eventually able to help her son to access those services. And she's a really fierce advocate for other parents in that situation. And these two families that we both know, the Council on Developmental Disabilities who helped launch this initiative, they knew June from a parent advocacy group. So that's how they learned about her story. And these two families also represent the two largest language groups in New York State spoken by immigrant communities. So speakers of Spanish, the Ramirez family, and then June speaks Cantonese, which is a Chinese language. So Spanish and Chinese languages being the top two non-English languages in New York State. So these are some of our achievements. Since 2019, we've hosted 161 workshops all around the state, in New York City, virtually and in person, also in the North Country, in Plattsburgh, in Syracuse, Utica, Binghamton, and looking, to do more. We're not stopping, we're keep going to host workshops on different information to connect both immigrant communities and service providers, parent groups with information and resources. And we've had a lot of workshop attendees, so 4,600, and we've mailed over 5,000 copies of our book Voyage, which is an illustrated resource book on the early identification of disabilities. At our workshops, so we'll bring in, one, what are the community's needs? Like if the community wants information on early child development and the early detection of disabilities, or maybe they want information about special education or housing support for people with developmental disabilities, we'll bring in speakers who can speak about that. Maybe if they're from a state agency or another partner group, we bring in the speaker, and then we also bring in language interpretation. So at this picture on the left, this was a group of Dari speakers from Afghanistan, and then there were also a couple other languages in this workshop. So sometimes we have multiple interpreters sharing information in those different languages. So a little bit about our multilingual resource book for new American families. Voyage was inspired by June's story, and we partnered with the New York State Act Early Ambassador to the CDC, who is a pediatrician who focuses on treating young children with developmental disabilities. She's a developmental behavioral pediatrician, and then she also is that CDC ambassador, so she helps sharing the CDC's Learn the Signs Act Early information. So what's in Voyage is our free resource book. We have multilingual information on child development from 2 months to 5 years and the early identification of disabilities. Each copy is bilingual, so in 2 languages, all the content in Voyage. So every book of Voyage has the information in English and then a second language. So even if someone's learning English, they can compare and see the 2 languages, and then they have access to that information in their language. And it has the ages for developmental screenings starting as early as 9 months, autism screening starting as early as 18 months, and then other important things like well-child visits, developmental milestones to track child development, and activities for parents to support their child's development and to celebrate their growth and development. And then also has some information about disability resources in New York State. So Voyage is now available in 13 languages. It's available, and actually I need to update this slide, make sure I have all the languages, but we have it in Spanish, in Chinese, we have it in Ukrainian, in Dari and Pashto for Afghans, people from Afghanistan. We made it into those languages because we're having people coming over from Afghanistan in the past few years, and we have a large Afghan community in New York. We have Bengali, Russian, Korean, and then also Karen and Burmese for people from Burma, and then also Somali. And to get free copies of Voyage and then some of our other informational material from the CDC, we have an order form. So I'll put this link in the chat too. You can also scan the QR code, and we mail out these free materials at no cost to people who order them. And we have some more resources on our website. We have some information on new Americans with disabilities, learning a little bit more about who new Americans are. We have a resource guide about all different disability services. So I'll just spotlight one. Well, in the resource guide, so I mentioned early intervention program. The resource guide has information on that for special education or services through the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. Also, I'll reference, the trade program is a really great program that I feel like not a lot of people have heard about. The trade program, technology-related assistance for individuals with disabilities, I think is the full name, and then they can help people. They've been really helpful, if someone needs something like a wheelchair ramp to make their apartment accessible or their house, or maybe they need a device to help communicate with others, high-tech or low-tech disability adaptive equipment to help people function in their day-to-day life. And it's free. It's a free service, and then anyone can access this service of all ages. Even if someone's undocumented, they just need to be a resident in New York State. That's the trade program, and I can link to that program. And they also shared an example, like if someone is even visiting New York State and wants to go to a theme park and they realize they need a wheelchair, they can contact the regional trade center to get that service. So definitely check out our website for more resources. The ONA website, you can also learn about our different programs. Now I'll just share a little bit about our bilingual coordinator program. So we launched this program. This is our case management program. We launched it in 2023 with the Chinese American Planning Council, and it does serve, the majority of its clients are immigrants from Asia, but they don't have to be from the Chinese American community to get services from this program. Chinese American Planning Council in Brooklyn, they also have staff that are Spanish speaking, and they can use language access resources to help different clients. We launched this program because we saw that there was a large immigrant community in the area who were, parents of children with developmental disabilities and were facing a lot of barriers. going through different eligibility processes. So this program helps to bridge gaps and helps people to connect with the developmental disability, mental health services that they need. And it has a focus on connecting with OPWDD services. So one of the things that they do is they've helped a lot of their clients to get a diagnosis of their disability, because sometimes people who are immigrants coming from other countries, they don't always have that documentation that they have a disability. And sometimes people, they might not even know, they might not have had access to different disability services in the country where they came from. So getting that documentation, we know, is really important to be able to get eligibility for services like OPWDD or other disability services. They also have a resource guide I can share on disability services in Brooklyn and then in other boroughs of the city. And it has information on different disability providers who speak other languages or who speak Chinese languages or are part of that community. So this resource I can share out. And if you're hearing about this program and you're thinking like, oh, this would be really helpful for a different community in a different area, we're really welcome to that feedback. Hope to expand the program to serve more communities. And they also host workshops to respond to the community needs. So just for instance, really sadly, just the community has been affected by a lot of fraud and scams, which is really a big thing right now. Just getting all the scam calls and the scam texts. Like I fell for one a few months ago and had to change my stuff. So it's just, there's a lot of scams right now. So the community, unfortunately, is dealing with that like identity theft scam of like using people's identity or using their Medicaid or taking their food stamps, like their SNAP benefits. So in response to that, they shared that with us, and then we connected them with the presenter from at Department of State, where Office for New Americans is housed. We have Consumer Protection. So a speaker from Consumer Protection shared some information about, protecting your identity, protecting against identity theft. And then, that division, Consumer Protection, they can also do other workshops if that's something that's helpful for you as well. So hoping to respond to the needs, through the ONA Bilingual Coordinator Program and through the Ramirez June Initiative. What are the needs of immigrants with disabilities? What barriers are they facing? How can we respond to it? And how can we help make connections and partner with other people to help overcome these challenges? So then just some resources that
Cynthia,
that time, right? Yes.
Hello. Thank you so much. Yes. Everyone should be scanning. Please send us all the slides, because I saw in the chat already everyone was asking questions so you can present at their meeting. This is like extremely important, because for me at least, my daughter is on the spectrum and it took me 2 whole years to get her services. It works. We have to be persistent, and this hits my heart, because I know what it is to advocate for your own child. Please send us the slides. I know and we need to send the last month's slides too. So we're gonna include everything once you send us all the slides and information. Thank you to everyone. If you do have any questions, please put it in the chat. We are running a little bit over time. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Please feel free to put your information down in the chat so people can connect directly. But we will also send your information to every single member so they can actually come and have you come to present. Thank you. And now we have the Office of Students Transportation, OmniCar presentation. Take it away.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is John Benson. I'm the Deputy Senior Executive Director of OPT. I think most of you know me from prior meetings. I've joined these meetings before. Here with me today is also Lanika Parker Moore. She's our Executive Director of Ridership Support and Citywide Programs. Lanika is one of our stars in the office. She oversees our transportation liaisons, our OmniCar delivery unit, our deliveries of caregiver metro cars for students in temporary housing and their parents, in addition to ensuring student safety on buses. So a really core team member here who does a lot of great work. She's going to bring you through a brief presentation on Omni, how it's different from the prior student metro cars, and then we'll take any questions you may have. So Lanika, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here to present about Omni. We had an exciting rollout in partnership with the MTA. So just wanted to give some high-level bullet points about Omni and walk you through kind of what we see for the future with Omni. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. And okay. So, Omni 2024-2025 school year rollout. Our agenda today is what is our Student Omni program? What changes were made this year and what's upcoming with Student Omni? And I can take your questions after if we have some time.
Lanika, I don't
Nika,
see the screen. I don't see your screen shared.
I was gonna
Okay.
say we don't
Okay,
see
let's
the
see.
screen.
Let's see. Let me try to do it again. Share. How about now?
Beautiful.
Good? Okay.
Yes, yes, yes,
There
Perfect.
it
yes.
is.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah. So 2024, 2025, like I said, we're looking to let you guys know what the program is, what changes were made this year, and what's upcoming for Omni. So, what is our Omni student program? Omni cards will let students ride MTA subways and MTA buses to get to and from school. It's all students in grades K to 12 who live more than a half a mile from their school. They're eligible for these cards unless they're assigned yellow bus service. Being that two forms of transportation would be in play there. We provide Omni cards to roughly about over 500,000 students or more each school year. And it still falls within our similar eligibility criteria, the same as with MetroCard. So this is just a brief chart that visually will show you, depending on the grade you're in, students have the option of either taking a yellow school bus or an Omni card. We'll provide this deck after for those who want to look at this more detail. And also this information is on our family facing site. What changes were made this year? So Omni cards, they replaced our old student MetroCard program. Eligibility criteria remain the same. Student MetroCards has specific restrictions on when they could be used. The Omni card has fewer restrictions, so allowing more access to students who need to travel throughout the city. They can be used up to 4 tasks per day at any time of the day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. So yes, they will work in summer. We've also simplified the program so that there's a single card for students in all grades. Before there were multiple cards, depending on what grade band, it's just one card for each student. So here's some reminders as we want to continue our partnership with the MTA and also increase student ridership and fare evasion. We wanted to have some reminders about the OmniCard use. So it's strictly for the assigned student only. It should not be sold or utilized by an unauthorized user. If anyone other than the assigned student is found using the OmniCard, it will be deactivated by the MTA. If your student has a lost or stolen OmniCard, they should report it to their school. If your student OmniCard is damaged, please return the damaged card to your school. The school will replace it right away. We send many cards to the school with a buffer to ensure that schools always have cards on hand. So what are some of the changes that are coming up with Omni? So New York City Public Schools is working with the MTA to develop a virtual Omni card. When this program is rolled out, students will have the option to link their Omni account to a device, eliminating the need to carry a physical card. New York City Public Schools is also partnering with MTA on various initiatives to encourage good ridership habits and reduce fare evasion, sort of like incentives for students to continue to tap at subways and buses. So very excited about the program, very excited to continue our partnership with MTA and also looking into the virtual Omni card. We'll probably be piloting something at the top of next year and then expand it to the whole school population. Thank you. If there are any questions, I can take them.
That was great and to the point. Let me see the time. I think we have time to ask a question or two.
We can, I'm sorry, we
Please.
can see your screen,
Oh,
Lanika.
I'll
yes,
stop sharing.
yes. Thank you, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Please, please, please raise your hand. I see 2 hands up. Please keep it brief, no follow-ups. And we still see your screen, my dear, just in case. I'm gonna stop share completely. Anika, we still see your screen.
Yeah, I'm taking it out now. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Okay, so we have Shernette from Queens, and then Caroline, and then Banana. Please, 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 no follow-up questions. Thank you, thank you.
Hi. Okay, so I had a question for the Omni cards. So the rollouts for the virtual, is it for the devices? If they want, they would have to say they want an actual physical card and then they put it on the device, like you do now with like the Go stuff, and or they will still have the card as well. So just in case they can use both.
That's a good question, actually. So there will be an option for students to select whether they want virtual or a physical card. We all know not every student will have a physical device. Maybe parents don't want them to have a smartphone or things like that, so they will still have the option of the physical card. But it wouldn't be both. It's either or, so we can maintain the integrity of the taps per student per ride.
Okay, thank you so much.
Caroline?
Thank you, Ms. Parker, for your presentation. My simple question is, basically, we've had issues where the students, unfortunately, their card is made out of paper. It'll get wet, it'll get lost, all of those things. Is there any conversation around the material being used for these cards, like the green Metro cards used to be?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. We have noticed that because we are receiving the returns, and we, it gets lost in the wash. Mom puts it in the wash by mistake, it's in the pocket, or kids juice and spilling. So we are aware that the physical media of the car has risen in terms of what needs to be deactivated. They're getting damaged more, which is why we've shipped multiple cars to schools so that they have some on hand to replace them. But yes, short answer, yes, we have been talking with the MTA and the vendor who currently makes the physical card to see if there's something that can be changed in the media. We're also hoping that if more students have access to the virtual card, then that will eliminate some of those issues as well.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any other question? Randy, do you have? Okay. District 8, Erica.
Hi, good morning. I just had a quick question. Our students who have IEPs and have transportations usually have only the yellow bus. Will they also be getting the Omni card as well, or is there something that they can get the Omni card, especially for our students who are in high school and start internships?
That's we've been talking with the MTA about that as well, but currently, in the Chancellor's regulations A801, students are only allowed one form of transportation. So the idea that you're taking the school bus means that you wouldn't need to get to and from school, but we do recognize the extended benefits of being able to travel outside of school hours, such as activities and extracurricular programs, work sites. So these are ongoing discussions. This is a new launch and rollout. So we're thinking about what that looks like for some of our students, even some of our students who may even live closer to home, but still want the extended benefits of being able to travel on the weekends and at night and over the summer.
And if I could just add on that as well, we do have the option for schools to request for students, even if they have yellow busing, but there's an extracurricular activity or a PSAL activity, they can request 2-trip Omni cards from us, which will be given to students. Those are separate cards from the ones that are used for AM, PM travel. So schools have a way to request those. So that way, if a student does have a bus, but there's an activity that is not met by the busing restrictions and the hours that buses run, they can request those. Those cards can be given to students. Those are 2-trip daily cards. We give those out in pretty high volume to meet this need.
Yes, thanks, Sean.
Yep.
Randy, do you have any questions?
I do not have questions for Mr. Benson at this time.
Okie dokie. We have 5 more minutes, guys. We've like never had extra time like ever. But this question, I mean, like, we always keep on learning. I didn't even know that if any student has bus and transportation, that they're able or and even eligible to get an extra Metro card to support their travel, I was not advised. So thank you for that, all these questions. Okay, so if my amazing parent family leadership coordinator, Miss Nancy Pereira. She's ready. I mean, the floor is yours.
I am ready. Hi, Erica. Nice to see your friendly face. How are you? Thanks again for helping us out that time when you came to support our PCs. That was a great takeaway after you were done with them. So thanks again. All right. So I was invited to facilitate I was given a variety of topics. And I was told I want you to do it all. And I said, well, do I have all day? Because everything you mentioned is a separate PD. So since we're in the middle of a spring elections, we agreed, let's do the roles and responsibilities for the establishment of a nominating committee. So that's what I'm going to do. Do I have share screen capability?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so here we go. Let's start this presentation. And make sure that you take copious notes because there will be pop quizzes throughout. Ask Rosa, she knows. And I have a couple of our parent coordinators on this call as well. They can attest to that as well. There are quizzes whenever I do a PD. So here we go. Let's get started. How come my computer's not listening to me? Hang on. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's a waiting page. In District 4, we always have a little waiting page with some music, give everybody a chance to log on. But, this meeting is in full swing, so we don't need a waiting page. So just make sure if you feel comfortable, leave your cameras on. We'd like to see who we're speaking with. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, just type your question in the chat. Rosie, you're monitoring, correct? Because I'm on a laptop. I only have one screen with me today. And
there's a whole executive board here to support you. Don't you worry, Nancy.
Perfect, thank you. And to avoid any background noise, let's stay on mute. But again, type in if you have any questions throughout, you can type in your questions in the chat or just unmute yourself and use the raise hand feature, and we will acknowledge whatever question that may come up. Today, we're going to discuss scheduling the elections, preparing for the elections, nominating committee responsibilities, and conducting an election meeting, either virtual or in person, because the regulations still say you could do either or a combination of. So PTA elections. Who's responsible for making sure that PTA elections get scheduled? That would be the PTA or PA executive board members. It's their responsibility or your responsibility, because you're all parent leaders in your districts, to make sure that that nominating committee is in place. And here in D4, we start those conversations around February, at the very latest March. That's with our parent leaders. With our parent coordinators, we start these conversations in January so that they could begin supporting their PAs to make sure that they're following through and getting those nominating committees in place. We call our PCs on-site technical advisors, and we make sure that our parent leaders know that they are there to support, guide, and assist. They are not there to do, because that's your responsibility. You guys, if you look at the preamble of A660, the first thing you're going to read is that PAs are self-governing and autonomous. The only way schools or district get involved is if there's been a violation of regulations, bylaws, or if a grievance or complaint has been filed. And then that's when we get involved, we investigate and move forward accordingly. When should elections take place? They really should take place between the third Wednesday in May and the third Friday in June. We have some of our schools here in District 4 that have their elections as early as April. Why do they have their elections that early? Because it's written in their bylaws. Your bylaws basically tell you when your nominating committee should be formed. And your bylaws should also say when your elections should take place. If they do not, then you're bound by regulations. And we all know that regulations can be a little bit ambiguous. because they're not specific. That's just a general overview of the operating day-to-day procedures for PAs. And of course, we all know that elections take place on school premises, and regulations still say virtual or in person. You could also do hybrid. It's not something we recommend, and the reason why we don't recommend hybrid for PA elections is because I don't think there is a PA in the city that has the technology to run a hybrid election. All right, nominating committees. That parent election guide is very relevant and basically provides a step-by-step guide on what that process is and what those roles and responsibilities are that we're going to start reviewing. The first step, once that nominating committee is formed, is the PA or PTA election notice. That election notice has to state what the positions are on the executive board, the date and time of the elections, if they're in person or virtual, and it must list all the positions on the executive board. Too often, we see election meeting notices going out that just say, join us for PA elections date, time, either location and Zoom link, but it's not listing the officers. And it's not giving any more detail other than that. We all know that, especially coming out of lockdown, getting people to step up into leadership roles has become more difficult. So the best way to entice and ensure that parents are showing up is to give as much information as possible when you're running elections. And that's a conversation that is had with the PA executive board, that outgoing board, alongside the nominating committee, who's actually responsible for ensuring that those elections take place. Any questions in the chat so far, Rosa? No?
Can I just,
No, don't worry about the questions. We'll do them afterwards.
Rosa,
Okay, all right.
Rosa, I'm sorry, excuse me, just for clarification,
Mhm.
the election meetings are in person or virtual, not
Either
hybrid.
or.
Right,
Either
not
or.
hybrid.
It's either or. You have three options in accordance with A660. And
So
then
what-
your bylaws are specific. Your bylaws must state if your elections are going to take place in person, if your elections are going to take place virtually, or if you are going to have hybrid elections. And that all has, yeah.
Hybrid elections are prohibited. It's in the Chancellor's regulations that you
Right.
cannot have elections in a hybrid format. It's only in person or virtual.
I'm sorry, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. You
I
just
just wanted
corrected
to
me.
clarify because everybody's
Yeah.
listening and I just want to make sure that
No,
that's
you're right. You
I'm
just
sorry.
corrected me because I'm looking at what you're just saying. You're absolutely right.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure it was
Absolutely
clear for everybody before you moved on. Thank you so much. I'm
Yes.
sorry, Nancy.
No. Yeah, in person or virtual, either or. And that's probably why that was removed way back when we first came back from lockdown, because it was more complicated. And many of our schools across the city were just not prepared technology-wise to carry those out. So you're correct, and thanks for that. All right, any other questions? Yes, no? Okay. Okay, so let's talk about preparing for the election once that nominating committee has been established. And we're assuming it's been established around February or March. That would be ideal. And we're going to go into the reasons why as we move forward. There are three important documents that nominating committee should be provided with, starting with the PTA election guide, because that gives you that step-by-step guide on their role and responsibilities and the timeline to carry out elections. The second document that all nominating committees should be provided with are a copy of the PA's current bylaws. Because that is in black and white, what are the positions on that executive board that are going to be elected? For example, are there co's? As your PA consists of co's? Are there co's in all three positions if you only have the three mandatory positions? Or if you have additional VPs or what are those specific responsibilities? Many of our PAs still use vice president as an executive board position. And the regulations are pretty clear in regards to VP. You have to, in your bylaws, describe what the role and responsibilities are going to be for that vice president. Otherwise, it's assumed that they're just filling in for the chair or PA president at meetings when they're unable to facilitate or chair their meetings. So I mean, and when we provide our PD on amending bylaws and what that process is, we always provide suggested provisions to include in bylaws, which many of our PAs automatically do, including what kind of mechanism they're going to use for elections, be it virtual or in person. And a whole bunch of other provisions. And again, but that's a whole other workshop that you will all be invited to during our Summer Parent Academy, because that's something that we delivered during the summer. Third document is that A660. The A660 is your Bible. We always tell PAs, executive board members, that your bylaws and the A660, that is your Bible. That must accompany you at all times whenever you are at a PA meeting, so that you're able to troubleshoot any questions that come up. The first document you're going to look at is that A660. And then you're going to see what your bylaws say to support whatever concerns or questions are coming up. So those are the three documents that all nominating committees should have, so that they are prepared to bring to fruition your PA spring elections. For in-person election meetings, we have like a little toolkit that we put together and we provide our nominating committees with. And that toolkit consists of, if we're doing in-person elections, what are we going to need, what they're going to need on hand to conduct an in-person election. And that's self-explanatory. I'm not gonna read this for you, but I will be providing this deck so you all have it as reference. Pop quiz. Here's your first pop quiz. What are the 3 mandatory positions for a PA executive board? You can type your answers in the chat, or you could unmute yourself and call out.
President, recording secretary, and treasurer.
That is correct. By when does a PA executive board have to form that nominating committee? On or about? When should nominating committees be put in place?
By April.
Vandana, that's our PA,
Hi,
that's our President's Council
Nancy.
president. How are you, Vandana?
I
That
am
is
good.
correct. You're correct, Vandana, at the very least by April. And the reason why is because by April 1st, the nominating committee or the PA president must let the principal know by April 1st when elections are going to be taking place. All right, moving on. For virtual elections, again, the toolkit that we provide contains the mechanism for in-person as well as for virtual. And that toolkit also includes the meeting notices that have to go out in both English and Spanish and any other language that are required. Nominating committee. Once that notice goes out and once that nominating committee is formed, and the reason why we recommend have your dates scheduled for elections as soon as possible, because you want to leave yourself a cushion in the event that you don't reach quorum during your election meeting. Because if you don't have quorum and you have elections scheduled for the second week in June and you don't reach quorum, then you're going to end the year without having parent leadership in place. Because there's not enough time left in the school year to get another 10-day calendar notice out to the parent body to reschedule elections if you have them that late in the school year. So we always recommend your first attempt should always be sometime around May, at the very latest mid to end of May, so that you have at least another 3 or 4 weeks to reschedule in the event that you do not reach quorum. Nominating committee, once the notice goes out, you guys are responsible for making sure that notice goes out and start circulating it to the parent body with the support of the school's parent coordinator and the current sitting executive board. You are ensuring that any candidates, if they are submitting nomination forms in advance, or if you're taking nominations the day of the election meeting, those are questions that are addressed in your bylaws. Some of our PAs do send out, when they send out their meeting notice, they have a little tear off on the bottom for anyone interested in nominating themselves or nominating someone else. And then the day of the election meeting, all those names are part of the ballot and confirmed, to ensure that the individuals being nominated are in fact accepting those nominations. The other part of the process is ensuring candidate eligibility, and not just candidate eligibility, but voter eligibility. How do you think that happens? Are we handing over an RBIR to a nominating committee that are non-DOE employees? And that RBIR is a listing of every single student in your school, along with personal identifying information. Here's a quick pop quiz. Who does candidate eligibility and voter eligibility during an election meeting to support a nominating committee for that election meeting? You could unmute yourself and answer, or type your answer in the chat. That's a quick question.
Parent coordinators.
Incorrect. Any other guesses?
The principal or their designee.
That is correct. It is their principal or their designee, and that designee cannot be the parent coordinator. That doesn't mean the parent coordinator is not going to support with the nominating committee with soliciting candidates and conducting that outreach. But when it comes time for that election meeting, there's only the only individuals that can verify candidate and voter eligibility would be the principal or their designee. And as we all know, for election meetings, any kind of election meeting, a 10-day notice is required. Soliciting the candidates. Again, the nominating committee is going to send out those notices to all members of the parent body, and that'll go out either via backpack, or it'll go out, however it is that whatever mechanism the school uses to communicate with families. School messenger, Gamma, backpacking, any other number of ways. In addition to that, there are certain things that the nominating committee needs to sit down with the executive board to review, and that is the bylaws, because the bylaws are going to talk about term limits. The bylaws are going to talk about the positions on that executive board. And the bylaws are always also going to address when nominations will be closed prior to that election meeting. Some PAs leave that nomination open all the way up until the date of the election meeting. Some PAs their bylaws state that by a week before the scheduled date of an election, nominations will be closed, but they're more specific than what I just said. But it all depends on what bylaws say, which is why it's really important that that nominating committee is sitting down with the executive board to review what that election meeting process is like. Conducting an election meeting for in-person or virtual elections. The process doesn't change as far as how the nomination meeting is conducted. The only thing that's different is the platforms that are used, in-person or virtual. But the process is the same. The nominating committee introduces all of the members' names, of the candidate names, and the positions that each candidate is running for. Once the election meeting is opened, if nominations are still open, then that call is made as they go down position by position to open up the floor to accept nominations. Individuals attending a meeting are always told and advised that they can nominate themselves or they can nominate someone else. But you have to be cognizant, because just because someone is nominated doesn't necessarily mean that they're interested in being part of the parent leadership in the school. Sometimes parents prefer to just volunteer and learn as they go. And then eventually, once they feel comfortable, they may say, okay, I think it's time for me to step up and take on that responsibility. And that's how you cultivate parent leadership in your schools. Just because someone's not interested in being part of a parent body, that does not mean you cannot mentor them and teach them and guide them in hopes that moving forward, when your child's articulating out of the school, you've cultivated fresh new parent leadership that is interested in stepping into those roles as current parent leaders transition to their next school with their child. Any questions so far? Okay. Okay. I mentioned quorum. We all know that even for your PA meetings, quorum consists of 8 members. And out of 2 of those members, even during an election meeting, out of 2 of those members, 2 of those members must be executive board members. Even if you're PTA, staff does not count towards quorum, only parents do. Now, one of the things that we strongly recommend for virtual meetings is record your meetings. And one of the members of the nominating committee, even if it's a virtual meeting, should always be taking notes, especially of any decisions and motions that are made. Even though you're recording your meeting, it's always good to take notes, because you still have to produce those minutes and disseminate those minutes to your parent body. Any questions, Rosa? No. I'll take your
Yeah,
silence
and
as
Nancy, yeah,
Yes.
on the, I believe on the prior screen that you share, you mentioned the verification of parents' eligibility to vote. I was not paying attention. I'm sorry, because that parent coordinators are also able to verify and support.
No. Yeah, because the only individuals that can verify voter and candidate eligibility is the principal or their designee. That's not to say that PCs will not support the election meeting, but when it comes time to verifying candidates, that RBIR or alphanumeric listing or ATS report can only be handled by a DOE staff member, because it contains personal identifying information for students, which is why it must be school personnel other than the parent coordinator to verify voter and candidate eligibility. Did I answer your question, Rosa?
Yeah, maybe I didn't. Anthony, do you wanna chip in a little bit?
Yes. So I do want to emphasize you are correct when it comes to the principal or the designee that the principal assigns, but it can also be the parent coordinator. The parent coordinator can verify votes, but that's the only thing that they can do, not anything else in the meeting. They're just observers after that point.
Yeah, the key word there is designee. The PCs cannot be the principal's designee. That's the key word there. Very different
Yes, they can.
not what that's not what the regulations say, but we can have a sidebar conversation, Anthony. It's very clear at every time you turn a page, the regulations say PCs may not serve as a principal's designee. Any other questions?
No, that was it from the chat. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So conducting the nomination meeting, again, in person or virtual. It's pretty straightforward, and we make it as easy as possible for our nominating committees. We provide a script, and that script not only contains filling in the positions for your executive board, spring elections also consists of filling any school leadership team vacancies. And it also should consist of electing your new parent advisory council. And the script that we provide for nominating committees, it contains electing all three committees at the same time during one election meeting. But, you know, when you're moving into PAC, the nominating committee this is the only difference. The nominating committee closes the PA election meeting, and then the outgoing PAC opens the parent advisory committee election portion of that meeting. Because only the PAC only the outgoing PAC can elect the PAC. The nominating committee is only responsible for electing a new executive board and filling any SLT parent vacancies. We always recommend when it comes to filling SLT parent vacancies, leave at least one position open so that any new families that come to your school starting in September and may be interested in parent leadership or becoming involved, that's a perfect way for them to begin getting their feet wet, so to say, in parent leadership at your school. And then that would be the first order of business for that newly elected Parent Association Executive Board would be when you advertise for your September PA meeting, you are also advertising that you will be holding an expedited election to fill an SLT parent vacancy. And that's guidance and support that's provided in that event, because we provide the meeting notices and the verbiage that should go on that notice when it goes out to families. So when the election meeting is taking place, we provide, if you can see, we're starting to provide you little snippets of the script on how to conduct that meeting. You're calling for nominations. We go position by position, or you can do slates. It's up to that nominating committee. And it's all part of the guidance provided. Once they're elected, you know, we PCs meet with them, or they can reach out to us at the district and we'll do those one-on-ones with them as well. We also deliver this deck during our President's Council meeting. So Vandana, get ready for President's Council. This is what's being delivered. And say, for example, the office of president, nominations have been taken in advance, but the bylaws say that you can still call for nominations the day of your election meeting. So here's your first position up. You're not doing slates. This particular school is doing position by position. First position is president. You provide a description of the role and responsibilities for president, and it's all laid out on the script that we provide nominating committees. And by the way, it's in English and in Spanish. It's translated. You go through the description, you go through your officers one by one, and you are asking for nominations and you're calling for nominations 3 times. Okay, so Rosa nominated herself for president. Okay. Rosa, do you accept? Yes, Rosa accepted. Any other nominees for the position of president? Crickets. No one else is interested. So you call it out 3 times, going once, going twice, going 3 times, and nominations closed. Then you move on to the next position. You want to give everyone in that attendance meeting ample time to think about whether or not they want to nominate themselves and put themselves out there. So that's why we do the 3-count rule. And once the nominations again are officially closed, you cannot add any additional candidates on that ballot for that position, unless you know, someone is insisting that, you know, they were late and I really want to be on that ballot. And then yeah. What I've done in the past is I leave it up to the families that are in that meeting. Because if I'm conducting an expedited election meeting, I'm not making those decisions. I let the parent body make those decisions. Do you want to reopen that nomination because we have a late arrival that's interested in this position? And then, you know, the parent body decides. Verifying candidate eligibility, again, for in-person or virtual elections. We start by providing the definition of for parents, and that's pretty self-explanatory and pretty straightforward. There are certain reasons that can make a parent ineligible to run. And you know, I've listed them here. If they've exceeded term limits, that's like really important. Some PAs don't have term limits as a provision in their bylaws, whereas some do. And those term limits will decide whether or not any nominees are eligible to run. If they've exceeded term limits, does that mean that they could put their name in the ballot? No, they can't because they've exceeded term limits. However, if no one else is running, then and no one is stepping up to run for any of the positions, then even though an individual has exceeded term limits, then at that time they can put their name in for a position on the executive board. And the other caveat there is if there are a member of the nominating committee, obviously they cannot run for a position on the executive board because that would be a conflict of interest. Any questions? No. Okay. For in-person and virtual before the elections, as mentioned earlier, by April 1st, the nominating committee has to notify the principal of the date and time of the election. If it's a virtual election, obviously the link that's going to be used. They have to review the bylaws. The principal has to identify who is the staff member that is going to be verifying voter and candidate eligibility, and who's going to be certifying that election once the election meeting is over. Certifying the election means signing off on that election certification form. Okay, where am I? All right. Go forward or back. Now, ballot preparation is something that is very important to review if you're doing in-person elections, simply because people make mistakes. So one of the things that we're very cognizant of when in-person elections are taking place is modeling what that ballot looks like, how it needs to be filled out, and what to do with that ballot once it is filled out. And the reason why I'm lifting this is because I've been in a situation many times when someone has incorrectly filled out a ballot. And that voids out that ballot when it comes time to start counting out those ballots. That vote is voided out. There've been times when they say, well, can I have another ballot after ballots have been collected and deposited in the ballot box? The answer to that question, unfortunately, is no. Which is why we're very thorough when it comes to, and we recommend this highly, if you're doing in-person elections, you must model how to complete that ballot by putting it up on a screen, holding it up and letting everyone know that they can only select one candidate for each position. And if any mistakes are made, and we make sure everyone is aware, if any mistakes are made in completing the ballot, then your ballot will be voided. And unfortunately, you're not provided with another ballot. So if you're doing in-person elections, it's really, really important that you take that into consideration and make sure you follow that process, because you don't want any grievances filed because someone got an additional ballot that should not have been provided with an additional ballot for whatever reason. Any questions? No, Rosa. Okay. Conducting the election continued. Voter eligibility, we talked about this. It's really important that only eligible parent members receive those ballots. Oops, I went far ahead. Sorry. It's really important that only parent members receive a copy of that ballot. And how that's done for in-person elections is whomever from one person of the nominating committee is sitting down at a table next to whomever the principal's designee is with that listing of all the parents in the school, and an attendance sheet. And as families are walking into the election meeting, they're going to that sign-in table, they're writing down their name, their child's name. And the principal's designee is pulling up that list, looking up that child's name, confirming if that individual or parent or whomever's there representing the child is actually the parent or guardian listed on that RBIR for that parent, which would make them an eligible voter. What makes a parent an eligible voter? Authorization code 01 or 02 next to their name. You will see a 09, you may see a 013, you may see a 08. Those are other emergency contact members that a parent has listed on a blue card. The only two codes that identify a parent or guardian are 01 and 02. And those are the individuals, when they're signing that attendance sheet, who are confirmed to have those codes next to their name on that listing. And those are the individuals that will be considered eligible to vote, as well as to be a candidate if they are interested. And then when it comes time to give out the ballots, those individuals are called up in the order which they signed in. And then they will be handed a ballot, and they would have to initial that they received that ballot. If anyone attending an election meeting is not coded on that listing as 01 or 02, then unfortunately they are not provided with that ballot. And has come up during election meetings, in-person election meetings, well, my name was not called, and then we don't want to embarrass anyone. Someone from the nominating committee is prepared to take that individual aside to let them know the reasons why they're not being provided with a ballot.
Nancy,
Yes,
is it okay to pause for a couple of minutes because the Chancellor's cabinet is here and we had a couple of questions that we wanted to ask before they leave for the other meeting?
absolutely.
Thank
I'll
you.
stop my share.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No.
You have the questions. Randy, you wanna go ahead and share the questions with the cabinet so we can have the answers live.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So the first question submitted is, what is the typical wait time for a parent to have their D210 processed and accounted for?
Good morning, members. I could answer that. Always a privilege to be at your meeting. So the D210 process, a complaint is acknowledged within 3 business days, and a jurisdictional decision is made as to whether to proceed or close, meaning that a confirmation on whether or not this is an actual D210 complaint or needs to be addressed in another way. And the findings would be made within 60 days, but I just want to note that each case is different, right? So findings have to be made within 60 days, but sometimes findings can be made sooner than that, depending on what the facts are.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. The next question is, in light of the potential federal funding cuts, does NYCPS have a contingency plan in place to address the possibility of federal funds being withheld, particularly for Title I schools that heavily rely on these resources?
Yeah, I'm Elijah. I'm here to just the finance team is actually at the city council hearing, so I'm here to just kind of speak to their talk to kind of the things that they provided. So let me just pull up the response that they shared, and I can read that out. Okay, so we're closely tracking the various federal actions as of now. We have not changed any of our policies and have recently reiterated our policies around protecting, supporting our immigrant and LGBTQ students consistent with the federal, state and local law. For your awareness, just to kind of give you a scope of like the federal funding piece, we received $2.2 billion in federal funding from the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Agriculture, Department of Education, which is about 5% of our budget, with our most substantial federal funding streams going to Title I, IDEA, school food, and then childcare and development block grants. Those federal policy changes that like we don't know yet, obviously, but they could significantly affect our funding for Title I and IDEA. As I said, more than $2.2 billion is supported by federal funding, but we're continuing to monitor this. As of right now, there has not been any changes. And as you can see, there's we're kind of not changing any policies as of right now. So again, finance should be on subsequent CPAC meetings so they can kind of go more into detail. I'm just helping here to support while they're out.
Okay, thank you, Elijah, for that response. Next question. Would you consider updating the Chancellor's regulations to allow children from the same household attending the same school to both qualify for yellow bus service if one sibling is already eligible? And then there's a part 2. I don't see Kevin Moran, and I don't believe John Benson is here. All right, so we'll move on to the next question. Maybe they can come back on, or we could ask that at the next meeting.
Randy, I think I have something that I could share on that with respect
Okay.
to we're talking about updating the chances regulation to allow children from the same household to attend the same school. Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay. So I can just go over just eligibility for yellow school buses is based on a student's grade level, distance from home and school, as well as existing accommodations, like whether it's medical, housing status, or safety assessment. So families in any grade can apply for an exception, and I can put where they can apply for the exception in the chat, if that's helpful.
That would be perfect. And then the other question is, can OPT make exceptions to allow 6th to 8th grade students to ride the yellow school bus if they are in dual districts?
I can help support on that one. I think that as they go through those exception requests, they're looking through to see kind of like the make sure that it makes sense for the family. Obviously, we still have our transfers regulations and rules, but that's something that we is investigated on case by case. I can't speak to individual cases, but I think we have that where Jesse put in the chat is a great place to follow up.
Thank you so much. Next question. When the Comfort Dog program first launched as Mudagrees, many dogs completed training and were successfully placed in schools. However, when New York City Public Schools took over, many of the dogs have been waiting for placement for over 3 years, and schools and PTAs have invested over $5,000 annually to support them. So this discouraged many principals and teachers from participating. Are there any steps that can be taken to expedite this process? I don't know who wants to take that question.
I don't know if Jay is on, but if he's not, I can share some information on this, Randy. So I know when the Comfort dog program first started as a pilot, the department collaborated closely with the North Shore Animal League, and this collaboration included utilizing their Mudagrees supplemental curriculum and relying on expertise to temperament test potential comfort dog candidates. So at that time, there was a waiting list managed by the North Shore Animal League for schools interested in obtaining a dog. But since the pilot phase, the Comfort Dog program has experienced some significant changes to align with the best practices and standards of animal-assisted interventions, known as AAI, including the implementation of comprehensive safety protocols and intensified training requirements for both the handlers and the dogs. So each Comfort Dog team must be certified as a therapy dog team to be eligible to apply for the program. Program now opens annually for schools to apply. Interested schools have to meet specific criteria, including the ability to provide a school-based budget for the program, as well as flexibility in space and scheduling, and have a staff member able to meet program needs. So I will put this in the chat as well, Randy and members. So to learn more about the program, schools may reach out to, and I'll put this email address in the chat, comfortdogs@schools.nyc.gov.
Hey, Jesse, it's Jay and I'm on. And for what it's worth, you did a great job of responding. I couldn't add another thing other than those dogs are beautiful, and we want to make sure that any school that wants to get involved is able to do so. So the folks in our office that lead the work will follow up with any contact that they get.
Thank you so much. Okay, next question. New York City Public School educators, students, and families are anxious and fearful of the chatter from Education Secretary Linda McMahon following through with President's upcoming executive order of eliminating the U.S. Department of Education. Is there anything that can be shared?
Hi, yeah, I'm Judy Nathan from the legal office. And just so you know, the executive orders and the OCR guidance documents do not have the force of law. We know there's been a lot of firings. Yesterday, even Secretary McMahon has acknowledged that she can't unilaterally discontinue the U.S. Department of Education. It was created by an act of Congress. So neither the president nor the Secretary of Education can unilaterally eliminate it, but we are following it closely for anything else that's happening.
Okay, thank you. I think you will also then have the next question. With the present presidential administration cutting DEI, what steps is New York City Public School taking to protect the rights of DOE employees and the continuation of hiring and retaining the diverse faculty in schools, district teams, and central divisions and departments?
We have not made any changes in existing policy. The executive orders and the guidance do not have the force of law. We believe strongly in the importance of having a high caliber and diverse staff that reflects the diversity of our student population and the families that we serve.
Okay, I see that we have our next presenter on, so I'm going to give the floor back to our chair, Rosa, and hopefully we can continue with questions after.
Yes, thank you, Randy. We're gonna unpause Nancy for like 2 minutes, and then we're gonna head to the president of the UFT to provide us information on the proposed I forgot the name already, but Nancy.
Para equity bill.
There we go. Thank you so much. You're muted, Nancy.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so believe we already discussed this, which is voter eligibility. Then there are two ways elections happen. Either they're contested or uncontested. Uncontested means the candidates are running unopposed. Contested means you have to move into ballot election because there's some opposition. It may not be for all three positions, maybe only one of the positions, perhaps maybe all three. Even if it's just one, then you're moving into a ballot, ballots to elect your officers. Come on. Okay, so if it's a contested election, obviously you're going to need that ballot box. Verify that that ballot box is empty, so no one is accused of having already entered ballots in that box, because that has happened. Instruct members on how to complete that ballot, which is modeling that ballot and letting your members know, the voters know that they can only select one candidate from each position. Any mistakes on the ballot, once it's dropped into that ballot box, will be voided. For and that's for contested offices, is where you will use the ballots as I mentioned. Once all the voting is done, then it's time to count the ballots. Going to have those tally sheets up on a board or smart board, and as ballots are pulled out of that box and counted, you're tallying those votes. Once all the votes are tallied for each candidate, and then you announce your winners. Pop quiz. And then we're done. Okay. How many, where's that question? How many parents does it take to reach quorum at a meeting? What is quorum at a meeting, at a PA meeting? Or election meeting, or any type of parent meeting? You could type it in the chat, you could unmute yourself. This is an easy question. Rosa, answer the question.
Chancellor's regulations state 8, but it is whatever your bylaws state. No less than 8. No less than 8.
It's 6 and 2 executive members.
One second, we're not unmuting ourselves. Please, Nancy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. A quorum is a total of 8 parents. And it's, or whatever the ballots say, as long as it's not less than what the regulations say. Rule of thumb, when it comes to bylaws and regulations, if your bylaws do not align with regulations, then we defer to regulations, not to your bylaws. So you have to be very cognizant. I'm sorry. You have to be very cognizant when you have quorum at a meeting. Yes, it is 8, but the regulations are very specific. Out of those 8, 6 are parents and 2 are executive board members. And that can be challenged at an election meeting. You don't want a grievance filed because you didn't acknowledge quorum the way it's written in the regulations. Because again, rule of thumb, if your bylaws contradict regulations, we're going with what regulations say. Okay. We already discussed this, so I'm just gonna bypass this. Yeah, we talked about PACs. After the election meeting, this is really, really important. After the election meeting, all of the elected candidates must exchange contact information, because now you're representing your parent body and you need to communicate with each other. And if it's an in-person election, ballots, tally sheets, attendance sheets, minutes of the election meeting, all of that is part of the PA's archive record that must be kept on file. If it's a virtual election, you recorded that meeting, but you're also taking minutes for any decisions and motions that are made. That is also maintained. Attendance for a virtual meeting, you're creating that Google attendance sheet. And if you need support with that, then that's where you tap into your on-site technical advisor. Here's a quick pop quiz. Who's your on-site technical advisor at your
So
school?
Nancy, after this, because I know our
We're done.
president of the USC is here also, I would love, love all the slides so we can provide it with to everyone. And also the amendment when it comes to the taking off the hybrid.
I already took it off while we were on
Look
break.
at that. Look at that. Thank you so much, Nancy. It has
All
been
right.
a pleasure. Apologies for the delays, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, UFC President, Mr. Michael Mulgrew.
Please,
I
Michael.
apologize for the late.
No,
Yes,
no,
yes, yes.
no apologies, please. No apologies.
Thank you. Thank you. This information was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for everybody who was out there this morning. And thank you for, I know, a lot of you joined us on Monday in Albany lobbying. And actually it was a good day because it was a recognition by both houses that they need to do some more for New York City. So I do appreciate everybody's support. Look, there's a lot of issues we can discuss, federal government, this and that, but I want one specific thing at this point is what we're trying to do for the paraprofessionals. And I want to put it in really very simply what this is. So when we surveyed all the schools this year, the biggest non-compliance issue was the ability to have a paraprofessional for a student. There's a whole bunch of others. We all know them, and we all are just as frustrated with the Department of Education. But we said, all right, look, this one, we have the account. We know what we need to do. Let's start hiring parents. The Chancellor, to her credit, actually 2 days after we did a press conference with a lot of parents and with paraprofessionals and teachers, the Chancellor, to her credit, I received a phone call from the first Deputy Chancellor, said it is now priority 1 of the Department of Ed to hire paraprofessionals. Great. We hired half of what we needed. Why? The pay. That's what it is. It's the salary. So people will say it's a collective bargaining agreement, but it's really not, because of what the city adheres to when you're doing collective bargaining is a practice known as pattern bargaining. In pattern bargaining, you can only give raises based off of percentages. So over a 25-year period, a paraprofessional who was making $22,000 say they get a 3% raise every other year or something along that line. But a teacher who was making $75,000 also gets that 3% raise. What it leads to is a pay inequity, because the paraprofessional then has less buying power, because 3% on $22,000 versus 3% on $75,000 is significantly different. So we have in our collective bargaining over the years, we have the other titles in the union have foregone part of their raise to give more money to the parents, but we cannot make up this gap. It's a very large gap now, and it's basically $10,000 would get them back to the same, would get them to the same buying power difference they had 25 years ago with teachers. Because of pattern bargaining, the city will say, well, we're not doing it because we don't have to, because the pattern is set. So we've just said, this is inequitable. It's unfair. You wouldn't even agree if the other workers wanted to pay for the whole thing, but it would be unfair to all of them because we're facing shortages everywhere. So we had to craft a bill, which does not, because it's illegal in the state of New York and the city of New York, to say for a governmental body, in this case, city council, to pass a law that would change the terms and conditions of patent bargaining. So this is a separate program that's like a stipend. The goal is for us in the long run is to tell the city this patent bargaining that you use is not a law, it's not a regulation, it's a practice. And it's wrong when it comes to our low wage workers. It's just wrong because it causes inequity over periods of time. And we've asked city council, and we seem to have a lot of support. But the idea is we can't attract the powers that we need. They're not taking the job, and that title has the biggest churn rate. Many of them leave. They leave for a lot of different reasons, but the number one reason is pay. It's pay, right? We all know that it's the pay. So this is why I want to make sure everybody understands what we're trying to do, because even with us recruiting and doing hiring halls in all 5 boroughs to get paraprofessionals, that was the UFT doing it in conjunction with the DOE, we were only able to fill up half of what we needed. And we also know that by the end of the school year, we're going to lose a couple of thousand paras as we have the last couple of years, and that's not in retirement. They just leave. So we're trying to get this. This is something we can fix. And of course, there's a lot of people who are now going to try to stop it, say it's a collective bargaining issue. No, it's not, because you rigged the game when it comes to our low wage workers, and we need to get this fixed. So that's it in a nutshell of what we're trying to do. And just for you all to know, April 2nd is Para Recognition Day. So let's make sure everybody's celebrating our paras, because I pose this question to teachers in every school that I visit at all times. I said, what would happen if all the paraprofessionals in your school didn't come to work for a week? And they get the same answer. We'd have a real-time functioning at all as a school. And because, we have 28,000 full-time paras, but we also have 5,000 substitute paras who are basically working as full-time. They're working full-time. So you're talking about 33,000 very valuable people and very important to our school system and to us, to the students that we serve. If you are a parent of someone with a para, you understand how important this is. And I'm just, I've told everyone this, our school system can no longer function without our paras. They are pivotal. And besides the fact that every para we don't have means another child is in non-compliance in terms of their IEP. So that's a big deal. And it's just straight up, we need to get this done. And hopefully that will allow us to be able to attract and retain some more paras, because the school system can't function without it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think someone said, is it April 2nd or 21st?
April 2nd.
April 2nd, yes. And also I saw Randy, thank you so much for putting it in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. We will definitely share all the information, and we will continue to celebrate our paras. Definitely the school cannot work without them. Okay. And we are going to pivot to the CCEC elections presentations. If you guys are ready, take it away. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Anthony, can you please put up the slides? Thank you. Good morning. I'm Constance McLeod Wills. I am the CCEC Project Manager and the CCE Elections Campaign Manager. Next slide. So just to remind everyone, we are conducting elections to fill our 36 education councils. Council seats are held for 2 years. There was one for each district and 4 to represent special student populations. Next slide. So this is our timeline for the election. We started in January. Our applications were open from January 13th, and we extended the application period to close on February 27th. The election results are announced in June, and the new term starts on July 1st. Next slide. So for 2025, we received 1,346 applications. That is an increase from our previous 2 cycles, but we definitely would like to get numbers up so that every school is represented in this process. Next slide. Next slide. So we are currently in the candidate forum stage of our election. You can find information on the first page of the New York City Schools website. And when you click, it'll take you to the site that I'm showing on this slide. The candidate forms give the applicants an opportunity to share their experiences and talk about why they're running so that people can make informed decisions when they vote. We also have links to the recordings for the forms for those who weren't able to make it. And we also have the profiles for each candidate up there. So people can also, again, view the profiles and make a decision so that it aligns with what they're looking for their school community. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lynn Sanchez, and she's going to talk a little bit about NICSA.
I'm going to touch upon that.
Hi, super excited to be here with you guys. And sorry, I'm just like in multiple spaces. So here I'm going to talk a little bit about NICSA. So NICSA is also known as the New York City Schools account, which is very, very different from my schools, right? When I talk to folks, I often hear my schools, and I have to help folks understand that NICSA and my schools serve our children, right? Are there to support us, but they're different platforms. But back to New York City Schools account, the account is crucial to have. It's super important, and I will emphasize this as much as possible. Because not only do you use your NICSA account or your New York City Schools account to apply to be a candidate during the application period that passed, but you also use the same platform to go in and vote, right? So the voting period is done through New York City Schools account between April 25th and May 13th. NICSA outreach will start. So right now we're working on, sorry, that's the other meeting that I'm just lowering the volume to. NICSA outreach will start this month to get families, parents, folks ready to vote, right? So we want to make sure there's going to be like a small NICSA campaign, some NICSA work to ensure that we're supporting FLCs, PCs, right? That we're supporting families create NICSA accounts. There will be a Zoom support session where we will, for some period of time, there'll be Zoom links, and it kind of sort of like office hours where anyone that's needing NICSA technical support is able to join the Zoom link. Will be sent into a breakout room, and then you'll be engaged with someone that can support you troubleshoot. And then once you're on your NICSA account, then you're able to go into your own space, because this is private and personal, and make your own informed decisions and vote. But we want to continue to emphasize that NICSA is something that everyone needs, and it's not just for this voting process, right? Or for this current election that occurs every 2 years. NICSA is used for many things. You use NICSA to check grades. You use NICSA for attendance, right? So we want to make sure that we're consistently saying that, and we are reminding folks, hey, use your NICSA, join NICSA. We also want to make sure that we're encouraging families, those that do not have a NICSA account, that they're going to see, pay a visit to your parent coordinator, right? Because your parent coordinator is very important in this process. They have the access to what's called an access code that the parent needs in order to create their NICSA account. If you need a password reset, your parent coordinator can support you with that as well. So we want to make sure, and we're going to continue to remind folks, NICSA is super important, not only for the election right now. It's very important for this current election, but it's also important outside the election for folks to continue to use it, get information, see the things that they need to see on their account, but then they get into a rhythm, right? And they maintain, as long as they're in a rhythm and they're maintaining their password and their NICSA access. NICSA is used for many things. So they'll have access to it. Next slide. I think I'm done maybe.
So now we're going to open it up to Q&A. I kind of rushed through my portion so that I didn't want to lose time to miss out on this opportunity. I see that we have one comment in the chat. Shrina, are you able to expand upon it? Because the wording, I'm a little confused. So I do see another question in the chat. So it says, what if the and FLC is unable to reset the NICSA. So if for some reason you don't have the capability to do that, we can connect you with DIIT. So in general, if you have any questions, inquiries, concerns, issues with anything elections, CCE elections related, please email elections2025@schools.nyc.gov, and we will definitely connect you to who you need to be connected to or resolve the issues that you're having.
But if I can add to that, Constance,
Mhm.
also have we've done NICSA trainings in the past, right? And there's clips, there's small videos, there's like small tutorials that we can share with your FLC that then they can also share with their PCs. And they can do a small NICSA just review of the tutorial of the video with the parent coordinators just to like, practice. So Ashley, that's something that we can definitely support in addition to ensuring that, right, DIIT is providing some support.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it.
And also, I just wanted to add. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Shakil. No, apologies.
This is Intakhab Shakil from DIT. I just also want to add, changing password, the users can do it themselves. This is in case they need assistance, they can contact the school and PCs can help. But a user who already has an account, they can always change their own password at any time. But if they need assistance, they can always go out to the school. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also wanted just to address Shernette's question. No, Shernette, we absolutely agree. With regards to candidate form information, there are flyers for each of the districts that are being shared. Just to let everyone know, I know that we are also making calls directly to each of the candidates, to ensure that they attend. So I definitely take your point, Shernette, about information being shared about the candidate forms. We are sharing those flyers, sharing that information out so that the voters have an opportunity to be able to see the candidates and be able to hear from them. So I appreciate the point. And then I think, Ashley, you had mentioned when will the website be updated to reflect names of all candidates currently running? So I know we're actively doing that. So if there's any cases that you see, Ashley, that candidate is not representative, please feel free to connect with me directly or at our email elections2025@schools.nyc.gov. And we'll make sure if there's any particular issue, we'll make sure to resolve that ASAP.
Thank you. Actually, my name is one of them, and I do know there's two other parents here in District 1 that actually attended the forum. We spoke, but our names are not reflected on the website. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Ashley. We'll make those corrections right away.
Thank you.
Are there any
Thank
other
you so
questions?
much. Yeah, I was going to say thank you so much. Does anyone have any other questions? Please raise your hand or write it in the chat. We'll get to them and have answers by via email. We'll send the answer via email. Also, Nick, if you can write the survey of support in the chat. There we go. He already did it. Okay. Please, everyone, if you can fill it out, that'd be great. We want to be supportive of our paras and their amazing work. Fill it out, please. And again, anyone have any questions? If not, we're going to move on. Okay, no questions. Thank you so much, Constance. And I know there has been a lot of information, a lot of emails, a lot of outreach. I see all the flyers. I see the trucks with,
And we're going to do another round for voting.
with the banners. I love it. I am in awe. I think every 2 years is like more and more outreach. So I am in awe. Thank you.
We're definitely trying to thank you guys for your partnership.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if I see Naquan or Randy Levine in the meeting. So we are just going to go to Jesse from Faith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also wanted to acknowledge that at this point that March is Women's History Month, and I wanted to take this moment to recognize all the women at CPAC who lead this council and lead districts representing the concerns of communities all over the city with such dedication and integrity. And I just wanted to let you know that it's a true privilege to work in partnership with you. And just a few updates. Yes, absolutely. Applause to all of you and applause to the work that you do every single day. Just wanted to give a few updates and take any questions, members, but letting everyone know about our upcoming town halls. So our next town halls are on Tuesday, March 18th. We'll be having a town hall with the Chancellor, with the Citywide Council on English Language Learners, followed by the Community Education Council, District 19 on Monday, March 24th. Then in District 29 with the CEC on Monday, April 21st, and then followed by Community Education Council 12's Town Hall with the Chancellor on Tuesday, April 29th. I know that Constance and Lynn were sharing on the elections, but just, wanted just to reiterate that we have had 1,346 applicants apply for this particular CC election cycle, and that is about a 22% increase compared to 2 years ago. So we wanted to thank everybody for your support and sharing information and sharing information about the campaign, and we look forward to our ongoing candidate forums and having all of the candidate forums occur and run well, and we really wanted to take this moment to really thank you for your partnership in all aspects of the campaign. Also wanted to share that we have been, during this process as well, during the campaign process, having an election working group, and I know that there are some members of the working group on this meeting currently, so wanted to thank all of you for your attendance to the working group, for your feedback to the working group. Our next sessions will be on March 20th, followed by April 30th, then May 29th and June 16th. Once again, if you have not attended an election working group meeting previously, you can attend any month's working group meeting. Everyone is invited, everyone's encouraged to attend. We really appreciate everyone's participation. So I can definitely share in the chat after I speak the links to the next meeting, and all are welcome. We spoke about the candidate forums. Also want to talk about the work of our homeschool partnerships team. We launched another Science of Reading series last week with over 1,100 attendees. We look forward to upcoming sessions and learning more about the program's impact on the families we serve. This school year, nearly 3,000 parents have been received training in the science of reading and strategies to support literacy at home and in their communities, and we're just very excited about that. Next week, on March 18th, FACE will launch a new training series on supporting early math at home, providing families with practical tools to strengthen foundational math skills. So these efforts, reflect our commitment to empowering our families to continue to be active partners in their children's education. And lastly, our parent mentorship team continues to support the 2025 elections by hosting weekly PC office hours as a means of support for schools to increase future voting by sharing information about the upcoming candidate forums, where family can find information about candidates, information about the elections. These sessions cover best outreach practices, troubleshooting commonly faced obstacles, and sharing practical resources and tools. Also wanted to share with everyone that our parent mentorship team continues to support family-facing staff through the planning of our annual Parent Coordinator Conference, which is scheduled for Wednesday, April 16th. This day-long conference includes breakout sessions, a resource fair, opportunities for PCs to network with other family-facing colleagues. And our goal for this conference is to provide a safe and connected space where PCs can, both, in a sense, recharge their batteries. Like it is like both personally and professionally. We know that parent coordinators take on quite a lot of responsibilities, and the work that they do is not easy. And so whatever we can do to best support them and help them, we are committed to doing, and engaging in meaningful learning opportunities that inspire and equip them with tools to continue their incredible work, and building a stronger sense of community with one another. So various New York City public school offices and divisions will be there, and FACE, will be there, and we look forward to a really successful conference. So with that said, I know I shared quite a few things. Happy to take any questions, and once again, thank you for the opportunity, members, to be at your meeting.
Absolutely, Jesse. Thank you so much. And definitely, I do agree. The parent coordinators have so many roles. I definitely know that and can emphasize with that. Does anyone have any questions for Jesse? If not, we're gonna go to the next presenter. Excellent, excellent. And Bibi just dropped in the chat the next election working group, and I love that it's welcoming to everyone. It's not just, oh, you sign up and you sign up. No, it's everyone's voices. Actually love that part. Adriana, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. And it's not more of a question, it's more of a very frustrated response. And I love everyone here. Jesse knows that and BB knows that. But on my end for President's Council, I've been very frustrated with the lack of not communication on the DOE spot. I'm not saying DOE, but learning times and everything. Our date was changed more than once.
Adriana, we lost
Council,
audio.
and I was very frustrated because I just got the flyer officially this week and my President's Council forum is next week. So I'm just putting that out there. Listen, I love everyone on this call, but I think something has to improve because this is not our first time in this rodeo. And I'm very frustrated because I have an in-person candidate forum. And can you hear me?
Can hear you now, Adriana.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. You know what it is? I'm sorry, my thing
I
on
think
the
the internet comes on and off. Yeah, no worries about it. It's all right.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just frustrated with the whole thing because it's a big deal for all of us, the parent voice thing, and I'm just very frustrated with the lack of, I don't even know what the wheels in motion. And I'm just putting that out there because Jesse's great. I love like I said, everyone here I love, but something has to improve because how am I sending out these notices to my presidents in my district 3 days, 4 days before? And it's nobody in my district's fault and nobody on the call's fault. I just think something has to improve. So thank you for my rant, for listening to my rant.
No, I appreciate it, Adriana. And what we'll do is part of our conversations and our transparency here and sharing information is to get better and be better. So I take your point very seriously. We all do. What we will do is we will follow up afterwards, specifically with you, on some of the issues that you've raised here today, and so that they don't reoccur in the future. And we thank you, once again, always thank you for your hard work and your honesty, because that helps us to be better. So thank you.
Absolutely. And this is the forum where parents ask their questions, their concerns, and, again, we work together. We want to hear from you guys, from every of our members, because you represent your constituents, right? So we want to hear exactly what's going on because, again, we work together, right? So if we don't know what's going on in your district, in your borough, then how can we help you? So thank you, Jesse. Always so nice in answering everything, and definitely will, circle back and support you as best as possible. And next we have our next presenter. I'm gonna have her introduce herself. Kaiser. Did I say it
Hi,
right?
everyone. Yeah, my name is Kaiser. I'm the NYC community organizer with the Alliance for Quality Education, or AQE. And I'm also here on behalf of CEF, the Coalition for Equitable Education Funding. And in just a moment, I'm going to be talking to you about the city budget and the state budget as it relates to education and the potential impact on our schools. So thank you so much for having me here. It's great to meet you all. I hope you're having a good morning. I am going to launch into a kind of dense presentation, so I'm sorry for at 11:30 in the morning really going deep, but please do, as we're discussing, note any questions. I'll try to have time for questions at the end. How long do I have?
You are right on time, so take it away. You
I
have
don't
maybe
know
like
how long I was scheduled for,
15
15
minutes.
minutes?
Is that okay?
I will do my best.
Yeah,
Sorry.
let's try to aim for 15 minutes so for the members can have questions,
Yeah.
back and forth questions.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Sorry. It's a big presentation. We sometimes do like an hour, but I'll probably just skip through some things and
20 minutes
get
in.
through as much as we can. Yeah, no, I understand. You have lots to address. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. Is that good? Great. So this is CEEF, the Coalition for Equitable Education Funding. We are a coalition of over 200 education-related organizations that came together last year because many important education programs were at risk of ending last year because they were funded with expiring federal stimulus funds and expiring city funds. And the city did continue funding for many key education programs that were at risk of ending as a result of our advocacy. Some programs were continued using one-year funding and other programs were continued long-term. So the programs in the city budget that were continued last year through one-year city dollars, so they were continued last year, but now they are at risk of expiring again. Early childhood or most of them are. Early childhood education, that includes 3K preschool special ed classes, extended day seats, and outreach to fill those seats. If some of your schools have pre-K, 3K, but they are under-enrolled, the outreach element is really important there. Summer programming, arts programming, community schools, learning to work, restorative justice, teacher recruitment, the mental health continuum, immigrant family communications and outreach, high impact tutoring, and student success centers. And here you can see the mayor in his preliminary budget extended funding for 2 of them for 1 more year. So learning to work and summer programming are not on the chopping block anymore for this coming year. Important to note, that's just this year, but it's still something. The following programs are once again at risk of significant cuts at the end of June. All of those ones I read, and here you can see the amounts. Important to note the amounts because obviously when I say like 3K is at risk of being cut, I don't mean 3K is going to not exist anymore. It's $112 million of the 3K funding, which is very significant, but I don't want to be alarmist and make you think that all of these are disappearing. So take note of the amounts. I won't go through all of them. So we're going to go through each program. I'll do this pretty quickly. But again, if you have questions as it relates to your specific district about any of the programs, we can have time for that. So for 3K and pre-K, it's $112 million of the overall budget for 3K in one-year city funding. Last year's budget also included $25 million for extended day seats and $5 million for community outreach. And losing this funding could mean that thousands of 3-year-olds who would have had the chance to attend 3K this fall will instead miss out. We know that the mayor has promised that every family that wants a seat in 3K will get one. Previously, that has not actually been the case. It has been kind of a story that has not come to fruition. Seats were offered very far away. Also, kids who have additional needs often don't get the seats they need in those programs. So we're already operating at a place where kids are missing out. This is the bare minimum. We need to at least continue funding what we're funding right now. I was just talking about preschool special education classes. $55 million of that is at risk. NYCPS opened new preschool special education classes to help address the significant shortage, adding seats for about 700 children with disabilities like autism. Even with this funding, hundreds of preschoolers with disabilities are still waiting for a seat in their legally mandated special education class. So this funding would allow us to keep those 700 seats, not necessarily add any more, unfortunately. Community schools, $14 million. Schools partner with community-based organizations to provide students and their families with comprehensive wraparound services like after-school programs, medical and dental care, and adult education classes. Expiring one-year funding supports more than 50 community schools. And I worked in a community school as a teacher, so I can tell you firsthand, they are proven to be successful, especially for our most vulnerable populations of students. Restorative justice, $12 million. This allows more schools to use alternatives to suspensions, keeping students in the classroom while helping them build and repair relationships. One-year funding represents the majority of the city's investment in restorative justice practices. I am grateful that in New York City, we have moved away from the more punitive approach. And so it's not as common anymore for schools to go right to detention or suspension for minor issues with students. Instead, it's encouraged that we address the root of the issue and try to use restorative justice practices to solve the problem. However, we don't have a lot of resources in place at the school level to support that. And it's a lot of work. It takes programming, it takes staffing, and that is not financially supported at this point, except by this $12 million that is at risk of being cut. Mental health continuum, $5 million. This is not all mental health services. This is a very specific program. It helps students with significant mental health needs access expedited mental health care. It's currently serving thousands of students at 50 high needs schools, but funding will expire in June. Immigrant family outreach, $4 million. Immigrant family outreach strengthens communication with immigrant families, many of whom would otherwise be left without important information about their children's schools. It's critical for this initiative to continue given the increase in the number of newcomer immigrant families in NYC, as well as changes in federal policies. We know our immigrant families are scared, they're confused. We need this funding to, at the very least, continue, and really we need it increased. Student success centers. Student success centers allow trained youth leaders to build a culture of college going and help their peers with the college admissions process. And they are in more than 30 NYC high schools, that's 3.3 million. And then there's more arts programming, $41 million, teacher recruitment, $10 million, and high impact tutoring, $4 million. So this is not everything that's at risk, but these are some of the programs that we're highlighting specifically. I did also see a question in the chat, what is considered a community school? It's a fair question. It can be confusing because we talk about community school districts, but not all of them are community schools. A community school, sometimes you'll hear the name of the school with the name of the organization it's linked to. So I worked at MS50 El Puente Community School because there's this community-based organization that has been in the neighborhood for many years often, and the school and the organization work together very, very closely to provide everything students need. Sometimes that looks like a washing machine or a shower or extra programs to get families involved. So I can't give an answer for your specific district, what community schools exist in your district, but you should be able to find out even just by looking at like the list of schools in your district. So our CEF recommendation is to include long-term funding for these important education programs in the executive budget. Parents, students, and educators need to know that they will be able to rely on these programs next year and beyond. The city should also make additional investments that are needed to support students with a focus on those who have the greatest needs. So we should not be fighting for these every year. This is the timeline of the budget. The mayor's preliminary budget has been released in January. The deadline for the mayor to release his executive budget is May 1st. That's why we're advocating very strongly right now so that he hears us and he can include these programs in his executive budget. And then the city budget deadline is June 30th. So you can see that this is the perfect time for us to raise our voices together. The City Council Education Budget Hearing is March 13th. You may notice that is today. We had a rally this morning. I just ran back home from there. You have perfect timing because you can still testify at the hearing today. So if you go to council.nyc.gov/testify, you can testify in person, which I'm assuming most of you can't do right now, which is fine, but you can also testify on Zoom. So if you sign up, you'll just have to kind of hang out on your Zoom for a while, but you're only speaking for 2 minutes. I always say it's like one of those recipes, you know, where it's like, it takes 8 hours to make the cookies, but most of the time the cookies are in the fridge. Just have your Zoom up. You only speak for 2 minutes. And you can also submit written testimony. If you're not able to testify on Zoom, it's okay. You can write how this affects your district, which programs are most important to you and why. This really does make a difference. The more testimony they get, especially from people like you who are the conduit between families and the Department of Education, that's really persuasive for them. So anything you can write, you don't have to be an expert on any of this. Write about your experience in your community. And you can scan that QR code that's on the screen to register for the rally that already happened. So never mind, I'm moving on. But you can scan the QR code on the left here to email Mayor Adams. This is one of those forms. It's all ready for you. All you have to type in is like your address, email address, and it'll email Mayor Adams for you. And on the right, we have a QR code that allow you to sign up for updates and to get involved. So if you're thinking, well, there's no way I can testify today, but this is really important to me and I want to learn more, scan the QR code on the right and we will keep you updated. And like I said, your voices are really important in this fight, so we definitely want you involved. And I'm going to quickly touch a little bit on the state budget. This is important because a huge chunk of our New York City Public Schools budget comes from the state budget. It comes from something called foundation aid. Foundation aid is the largest source of funding from the state to New York City Public Schools and other school districts. It's distributed to New York City and other school districts through a funding formula that provides funding for each student. And it's currently being re-examined for the first time since 2007. How much funding does it provide? Across the state, it's $24.9 billion to all the different districts and $9.9 billion to New York City Public Schools, which is 25% of the entire budget of New York City Public Schools. The funding is used in many different ways. Foundation aid funding is actually one of the more flexible streams of funding, so schools can use it for a lot of different things, from staffing to curriculum materials to nurses. I guess that's staffing, but it's really flexible funding. All different things in school budgets and also education programs, whether connected with school or even outside of school. So we already went over some of the previously funded, some of the programs that expired previously. They were funded with federal funding, and now they are funded through long-term state foundation aid dollars, like certain preschool special education supports, and additionally 500 school social workers and psychologists, more than 100 community schools, 100 shelter-based coordinators, literacy and dyslexia programming, bilingual programming, translation and interpretation services, and career pathways programs. These are funded with foundation aid. The formula is very complicated. Like I said about the city level stuff, you do not need to be an expert in order to speak up about it. You do not need to understand every aspect of the foundation aid formula to say that we need it fully funded. But I'll give you just at least a little bit of an idea so that you feel empowered to speak up. The formula sets the base amount per student. That base funding amount is then adjusted to account for inflation, regional cost differences, and student need. So there are some additional weights depending on student needs, and that includes students living in poverty, students with disabilities, and English language learners. So the base amount is multiplied by a small percentage depending on that extra need. And then New York State determines what a district's minimum local contribution is, meaning what New York City, as an example, is going to be able to pay from our local taxes. That amount is subtracted, and that's the formula that gives them the amount they are going to give us for education. Again, confusing. Don't worry, you don't need to be an expert. I'm going to skip some of this history. It is very important, but I know time is short. But I will say that AQE, the organization I work for, was instrumental in getting the formula implemented in 2007. And it is how we have equitable funding across New York State for public schools. I was one of those parents. Amazing, amazing. So you can tell our history too. We appreciate that the governor and New York State legislature fully funded the formula for the first time in 2023, but the formula is outdated. Most parts haven't changed since 2007. State funding for public education has not kept up with rising costs and changing student needs. And New York City is having to kind of make up the balance of the amount from the state having less of an impact. So just for a minute, think back to 2007. What were you doing in 2007? Barack Obama launched his first presidential campaign. First iPhone was released. Twitter was only a year old. I was 1 year out of high school. This is a long time ago, right? What's changed in New York schools since 2007? COVID-19, youth mental health crisis, rise in student homelessness, increase in community schools, which are proven effective, but they do cost more, new learning standards, technology, new class size law, added 3K and pre-K, 2 whole grades, and more children have been diagnosed with autism. So the state is examining the formula after public pressure for the first time in more than 15 years. Last year, New York State, the budget funded the Rockefeller Institute to study the formula and recommend changes. So you'll hear me talk about some of the recommendations, and these changes will have a major impact on us. The study is very long, it's 300 pages, and it included a menu of possible changes. So the governor was allowed to choose which ones to include in her budget proposal. Governor Hochul proposed only a few changes to the foundation aid formula, and these changes would result in New York City schools getting nearly $350 million less than they would without these changes. The executive proposal aims to replace free and reduced price lunch metric with broader measure of economically disadvantaged students. This is a good thing. This change would bring more resources to New York City schools by better counting the number of low-income students. The free and reduced price lunch count was just outdated. It wasn't effective anymore. But in addition, Governor Hochul is proposing to replace the 2000 census data with 3-year average small area income and poverty estimates. This change would decrease funding for NYC schools. So the 2000 census data, again, that did need to be replaced. It was outdated. It's 2000 data. It needs to be replaced, absolutely. It wasn't counting correctly. But the measure she's replacing it with, it's called the SAPE, Small Area Income and Poverty Estimates. It's another census measure, which means it only gets updated every 10 years. It uses the federal poverty guidelines, which currently say that just $32,150 for a family of 4 is the poverty line. We all know that in New York City, that's like kind of laughable to think that a family of 4 would be able to survive on that much, or, you know, even a little bit more. It's just not, it's nonsense. It costs more to live in New York City than many other places in the state. The SAPE also includes students in public and private schools, so it's just not an adequate way to measure student poverty. So I want to be clear, we're not just saying like, we need more money for no reason, right? We're explaining that the proposal just does not accurately capture the picture of poverty in New York City. Yes, students in New York City do all get free lunch, and that's part of why counting the lunch forms isn't really helpful anymore. That's exactly part of the problem. Yes, that is what some families are living on, yes. But we want the state to understand how many of those families we have, because we want to give them more support at school, right? If you're living on $32,000 at home, you might not have enough food. And the state is measuring and saying $32,000, yeah, that's good, they should be good. We know that doesn't make sense. We need to be able to support them at a higher level. Impact on NYC schools. Overall, NYC will see an increase in foundation aid because of other parts of the formula. So the overall amount this year will still go up, but the increase will be nearly $350 million less than it would be without the governor's proposed changes. So if everything stayed the same in the formula from 2007, we would get $350 million more. The changes are harming us. NYC schools would lose funding intended for low-income students, even though 146,000 NYC students experienced homelessness last year. 700,000 NYC students are economically disadvantaged. 44% of NYC families with children had trouble affording food in 2023. It's terrible. And again, we want to be able to provide for these kids at school so that at least there's one place they can go where there's everything they need. And we can't do that if the state isn't measuring accurately. NYC's needs are too significant. We know we have around 50,000 newcomer immigrant students. The new state law requires us to lower class sizes. We've been paying for 3K almost entirely on our own, and federal stimulus funding expired in 2024. So we have some recommendations for state leaders. Overall, we just need them to fix the problem. Again, we don't need to be experts. It's not our job to solve the problem. It's theirs. We need them to implement changes that will not harm New York City. And again, will accurately count the poverty levels in New York City. There are some more specific recommendations. We are recommending that they update the regional cost index. The regional cost index accounts for differences in salaries in different regions of New York State, but it hasn't been updated since 2006. So the amount that they think that we're paying our teachers now is whatever we paid our teachers in 2006, which is just inaccurate. This update has been recommended by the New York State Board of Regents and the state-funded Rockefeller Institute study. The Independent Budget Office estimates that this would drive $306 million to NYC schools if fully implemented in 1 year. And so you can see that this would not entirely, but almost make up for that $350 million from before. I see a question in the chat. I'm going to address it in 1 second. It's an important question. Add a weight for students in temporary housing and students in the foster care system. Again, I already cited the statistics. The formula does not include any added funds for these students. Consider additional ways of measuring poverty. So in addition to the SAPE and the count of economically disadvantaged students, they could use higher weights for higher concentrations of poverty, which was a recommendation in the Rockefeller Institute study. They could also add a new cost of living adjustment or a higher poverty threshold for certain communities, acknowledging that that federal threshold really doesn't make sense in New York City and in some other places in the state as well. There are also other changes that are missing from the formula. We recommended that they increase the weights for students with disabilities, increase the weights for English language learners, include funding for students in 3K and pre-K, and for students with disabilities through the school year they turn 22 because of the new law that requires us to allow for that, to re-examine the base amount for each student that the whole formula is based on, and to include funding for class size. We also recommend ongoing review of the formula. It hasn't been reviewed since 2007. Are we going to wait another almost 20 years and say, oh, you know, maybe it's time to review it again? They could implement ongoing review. The timeline is similar to the city timeline. It kind of echoes that 3-step process. The governor's budget has already been released. The Senate and Assembly budget proposals were just released mid-March. They were just released earlier this week, and they do contain some of our recommendations, but it's important, really important right now to keep up with the advocacy, because between mid-March and April 1st, the budget deadline, the governor and the legislature, the Senate and Assembly, are going to be negotiating back and forth to decide on the final budget. And so we need to be really loud about the proposals that could fix that $350 million gap. So join us in calling on the governor and the New York State legislature not to shortchange NYC schools. Our state leaders must make sure changes to the foundation aid formula do not negatively impact NYC schools. There are 2 actions you can take. Similar to before, on the left, you can email Governor Hochul and key New York State legislators. It's just a form, type in your stuff, click send, and you're good to go. It takes like maybe less than a minute. And on the right, sign up for updates and to get involved. Sorry that I talked very fast. I don't know if you have translation on this call. If you do, I apologize to the translators.
No, it was perfect. I think it was perfect and it was much needed. I remember also supporting, and I am all for it just because, you know, there's a lot of people that are in need, and you know, there's a lot of you know, misinformation out there too. You know what I mean? So, can you send us those slides so we can send it to parents as soon as the meeting is done, so they can have a chance
Absolutely.
to.
Yes, I will absolutely send you the slides. And I did want to answer, I saw 2 questions in the chat. Still confused, so we will give them more meals at schools. Okay, this is a great question because it really illustrates how the formula works. No, we already give free meals. So nothing about what we are doing necessarily is going to change. That's the problem. We are already supporting our students the way we need to, right? We're giving them meals. We have community schools. We have excellent teachers who we pay a salary that allows them to continue teaching in our schools, right? Those costs already exist. What the formula is supposed to do, What it was built to do is measure those costs and then give us the money we need to continue with all of those supports that we give our schools, that we give our students. It's not measuring it accurately. And so we're at risk that they will give us less money and we will still want to do all the things we're doing. We will still have to pay the teachers the same salary, right? We can't just start paying them less. We are going to continue providing free lunch. The problem is that we won't have enough funding for it. And so then that money has to come out of somewhere, right? And that's when you start seeing cuts to individual schools, cuts to the stuff at Central that keeps everything going, right? They have to find somewhere to take the money out of. So we're trying to prevent that from happening by advocating for the formula to measure all of our costs accurately.
So just a really quick question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So the funding for the free school meals, is that federal or city?
I believe school meals does not come from foundation aid, but again, the overall budget just has to cover all of our costs. So when we're talking about free lunch, the reason that came up is because they were previously, they're not anymore. They were previously using the free lunch forms to measure poverty. So they would count the number of students who handed in the form that says, my family needs free lunch because we don't have enough food at home. Then they would say, okay, you have this many students who need free lunch. Therefore, there's this much poverty. Therefore, you need this much extra money. So that's why the free lunch thing came up. It's not about having enough money to pay for that food. It's about counting the level of need and then making sure we have enough money to support the students at that level of need. Is that clearer?
Yeah, I don't want to keep going. I know there's other people with questions, but like,
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's
yeah, it's
just
okay.
like
It's okay.
follow-ups and everything. Just write it in the chat. We'll follow up with everyone that has any questions. Let me see.
Yeah, I can also stay on for a minute, and if people write questions in the chat, I'll
Yeah,
respond.
in the chat, because I know Randy, and I'm gonna pass the baton to Randy because we have a couple of other questions that we wanted that we received from our members and just wanted to have the answers live. But thank you so much, Kaiser. Please, I'm looking forward to those slides so we can send it to everyone like right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will absolutely send them. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, we thank you. Randy?
Thank you, Rosa. So the last question that I asked was the DEI cuts. So the next question is, can New York City Public Schools provide a standardized PDF sign regarding the ban on lithium-ion mobility devices within the school grounds and 6 feet of entrances? Is that something, Jesse, you can answer?
Hi, Randy. I don't know if Jay is on,
I don't
but
believe so.
okay. If he's not, what I can do is I can get back to the council. Like we definitely commit to reviewing the legislation with legal and definitely seeing what our role could be, meaning like the advertisement or the PDFs that you're recommending. So I'll definitely get back with to Jay and his office, and we'll discuss this further and follow up with the council.
Okay, and then the last question is, how can New York City Public Schools address instances where school administrators exhibit unprofessional behavior towards parent leaders, sometimes even in the presence of students and staff? When there's a lack of support from the district office in such situations, what steps can be taken to ensure more inclusive and respectful environment where parents feel valued and as essential partners in the school community?
I'm not sure if any of our colleagues from DSL are still on, but I can take this, Randy. If our one is I'll take this in different parts. Like so, the immediate intervention is the superintendent should promptly investigate reported incidences and address unprofessional behavior by administrators to prevent further harm to parent-school relationships, like, and also clear accountability measures, like implement and enforce a code of conduct for school administrators outlining professional expectations and consequences for inappropriate behavior. Also, training and professional development requires school administrators to participate in training on effective communication, conflict resolution, and parent engagement best practices. Also strengthening district oversight, ensuring that the district office actively monitors and responds to complaints about administrator behavior, holding them accountable for fostering a respectful school climate. Facilitating mediation and dialogue, offering mediation sessions between school administrators and parent leaders to address conflicts and rebuild trust. This can be done with the family leadership or family support coordinator. They can also get support from their student service directors who are trained on restorative practices. Engaging parent leaders in decision-making, including parent representatives in advisory committees or task force that address school culture and climate. Regular superintendent check-ins, scheduling routine meetings between the superintendent, parent leaders, school administrators to maintain open communication and address concerns proactively. And lastly, policy enforcement and cultural shift. The superintendent and their team should ensure they strengthen policies that promote respect and collaboration, ensuring all school staff understand the value of parents as partners in education and provide the space and opportunity for those events.
Thank you, Jesse. Okay, so that was all the questions that we received. So please make sure that you are filling out the questionnaire when it's sent out, because this is how they get answered. Even though the chancellor's not here, she sent her team, she sent everyone prepared to respond. So she's making sure that even though she couldn't be here today because she's at the hearing, but her staff is here well prepared to address our issues and concerns. In the chat, it says, what happens when there's a complicit reaction or issues ignored from the district office?
I think similar to any escalation protocol, right? Like where things get escalated, then those issues get escalated to central.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we also wanted to speak about the PTA elections. We really want to make sure that PTA elections are done before President's Council elections are done. So President's Council, presidents, representatives that are here today, please make sure that you're having these conversations with your PTAs across the city, and you're letting them know that they need to make sure that they form their nominating committees. If they're unable to form a nominating committee, they can reach out to President's Council for support. As President's Council, we are able to go in and help support with elections. There are also election scripts. So if someone should be nervous and not know what to say or do, we can provide scripts for them. Any parent at a school who is a current parent, so no honorary, no alumni, the current parent in the school can run the election. Also great when you have a graduating out parent member to run elections, but President's Council can come in support. And then after the President's Council, your FLC or FSC can come in support. You should be, so according to your bylaws, you should be forming your nominating committees as per your bylaws. If you don't form it, we start earlier, because if you can't form it at the first month's meeting, you can try again at the second time. But having your elections, especially if you're a school that has trouble reaching quorum, reach out to your parent coordinator and see if you can host like an event where you can bring out more parents so that you can get them in and engaged. Even if they're not interested in running, you can still have them there for quorum and for voting purposes. So, and of course, if you're in elementary school, you want to get your pre-K kindergarten parents in, you want to get your, in middle school, 6th and 7th grade parents, in high school, you want to get those 9th grade parents in, because they're the ones that are going to be there the longest. So we really hope to have, we focus a lot on CEC elections and the citywide council elections, but we also want to focus every year. We do host our PTA elections, SLT, Title I. So we want to make sure that that gets done so that in June, President's Councils can have their elections. So this gives time to plan over the summer. Remember, your term ends on June 30th and starts on July 1st. So July 1st, you can hit the road, running, get your bank account set up, get all these wonderful things done. Speaking of bank accounts, we had a very productive meeting with DAIT. The DOE external emails are happening and they have a timeline. They seem very organized. The shared inboxes are going to also happen. So we're going to be able to utilize those as well. It was explained that the Zoom will be linked to the Personal DOE external, they did try to get it with the shared inbox, but it was not happening, but they did fight for us. So we appreciate that very much. But they do have a timeline of how things are going to happen, and they are going to provide training over the summer and into the fall. So they know that our elections can happen anytime from April until October 15th. So they are setting up a plan to just strategically plan to get parent coordinators on board, help us transfer everything out of our at schools email addresses into our DOE external shared inboxes, and those will be able to be used to set up our bank accounts. So the Zoom accounts will set up through the DOE external. So my DOE externals are Gary to a DOE external. That's what I'll use for all my Zooms. But my DOE external will have access to a shared inbox from CPAC, from Brooklyn High School President's Council, from my PTA, and I'll have access to all those through Gmail. They're going to explain how Gmail is going to work. They're going to explain all the ins and outs. They were we shared all the concerns that we compiled from our membership, had a meeting, they addressed each concern, and they're working on everything to take place starting April. That's why it's very important to have your elections done. The sooner your elections are completed, the sooner you'll have your DOE external emails, and you can get everything into place. Veronica, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I've been getting complaints about parent leaders trying to set up the email. A lot of them is like a little pushback because they're asking for the date of birth.
So we were
And
told
so a lot of people are not comfortable with that.
we were told that they can give any government issued ID, so it can even be a library card. So if you're uncomfortable sharing your personal information, go out and get yourself a library card and share that library card number, and that is good enough.
Thank you. I share that at my next meeting.
Okay. Also share. So we're at borough updates, district updates, Rosa.
Yeah, we have like 3 minutes. Do you want to go first? I want to go second, or whichever.
I being that I'm already here, just wanted to share. So our school had a catch program, a catch workshop for the catch program. Catch is connecting adolescents to comprehensive healthcare, and they give limited reproductive health services. So if they're in 57 of our high schools currently, it doesn't go by the age of the child, it goes by the grade. So I'm a 6 to 12 school, but they only are for the 9th to 12th grade students. This is an amazing program. The workshop last night was how to talk to your children about sexuality. It's like the conversation that most parents feel awkward or uncomfortable talking to their children about. And it was so well received. This program really should be in every school building. I'm sure you all know it's about funding. She did share, so we had Bryce Komaroff. She is the health education supervisor for my area. I do have the list of the schools across the city that they are in. So we did have some PTA presidents that were unaware that they were even in the building. So this is just about raising awareness. So we just want to make sure that you're all aware of this program. And if you are interested in it, then we want to help get it into all our high schools. And I will yield the floor to Rosa.
Yes, thank you, Randy. Also, just wanted to remind everyone, if you haven't seen it already, Manhattan High School's President's Council will be doing a forum tomorrow, March 14, from 6 to 9 p.m. To interview the candidates for the Citywide Council on High Schools. It's very important that you come, listen, ask questions if time permits. Because we want to know who will be able to represent us as borough-wide. And also, actually tonight we are having a PTA Link is having a forum to support PTAs and everything that we need to know, especially with the school year ending, so everyone can be prepared. All parent associations, parent teachers associations are welcome to come. I know Caroline already left, but she will be also in the forum, and myself, I'm going to be supporting the forum with District 21. Georgette is going to be doing the forum too. So together we'll be able to support all parents. And what else? I think, oh yes, I think that's it for me. Does anyone else have a quick district borough or district update or borough update? Please raise your hand before we adjourn the meeting. Okay, so moving on, I am going to share my screen. Is this where we left off? I already shared this. Okay, so these are just save the date. Our next meeting is April the 10th at 9:30 a.m. as every single month. And CPAC committees, we are working on them because some have not met, and we will be together as an executive board. We will be making decisions to have new chairs. And also, who is Chancellor's Parent Advisory Council? What do we do, right? We're elected parent leaders representing all New York City public schools and students and families. We are comprised of 38 President's Council, district and boroughs combined. CPAC ensures that parents' voice is heard. We're always striving for excellence, equity, and opportunity for all. We collaborate with different stakeholders, as you can see today, and we work together to provide the best and useful information. Please look at our website. It is being updated by us, cpacnyc.com. Please let us know. There's also a listserv in there. And women, thank you so much, myself included. Today and every day, we gotta celebrate ourselves. As parent leaders, sometimes it is very difficult to take a break. I know that myself, from all the responsibilities and all the roles that we have and everyone that we need to support, but we need to take a break and self-care. And also, CPAC is truly grateful for your leadership and dedication to advocating for our children's, all our New York City schools students and families. We truly thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And with that, let me stop my share. Members, we ask you to please state after the meeting if possible. And Randy, we are good for roll call, the last roll call.
I entered everyone as they entered the meeting. I was adding them to the attendance form.
Beautiful, because I know a couple of them. Okay, beautiful. Please sign the attendance sheet if you haven't already too. With that, we are adjourning the meeting at 12:18. Thank you so much to everyone, and please, members, do stay as I end the YouTube live. Thank you, everyone, for your support and collaboration.